Hello. Sometimes we have questions about the future and in a particular place. I have four examples of questions to illustrate what I'm referring to here. First example would be that you're planning to go on vacation this summer, or as a lot of people in Europe call it, go on a holiday. So you have a question of when during the summer. Should it be June, July, August? Maybe you're going to take a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. What time and what place, of course. Where do you want to take a vacation this summer? So there are two questions, when and where. And you can handle this in two steps. You can do a forecast for the summer, and then you can do some relocational things. There's also a technique that combines them together in a nice, elegant, simple way, and that's what I'm going to show you. I've got some more examples of questions here. I think you've got the idea. There's so many, but just to go over a few of them. Suppose you're involved in sponsoring a conference. Maybe you're a conference coordinator, or you're part of a committee that does a conference each year. So the question is exactly when during the year you're going to have the conference and where. Another example is businesses. Businesses may advertise, do promotions, develop agreements. When should they do it and where should they do it? So my last example here is advertising campaign. We're thinking about doing it in San Francisco in August. Your client may tell you this and ask you, is this a good idea? So bottom line, I have here at the bottom of the slide, we have questions about time and place, and I'm going to show you a really beautiful way to answer these kinds of questions. And here's what we do. I'm going to show you how you do it in the Kepler software, which is the same as the Sirius software. So I'll show you how to do it in Kepler and Sirius. If you have a different program, the concept will be the same. What we're going to do is we're going to look at an AstroMap, and the AstroMap will compare the transits to the birth chart. And typically the way that this is done is you compare the transiting planets to the birth chart, ascendant, and midheaven. So you're finding where the transiting planets would make an aspect to angular cusps in the natal chart. It's the same thing as an astromap. What an astromap shows you is where planets in your birth chart make aspects to the angular cusps. But instead of the planets in the birth chart, you're using the transiting planets. So it's a beautiful idea. You're looking at angular planets. And I think all astrologers agree with this idea. I know I do. When a transiting planet activates an angular house cusp means ascendant or descendant or midheaven or the IC, the first, fourth, seventh, or 10th house cusps. Wow, it's big. So you find out where it's going to activate your relocated angular cusps. This is so powerful and so beautiful to visualize. Okay, so to repeat, what we're going to do is we're going to see where the transiting planets are going to activate the relocated house cusps using an astromap. And the way we're going to do it in the Kepler and Sirius programs, here's the 4 steps. I'll preview basically what's going to happen. We're going to create a chart for today. Then we're going to select an astromap, and we're going to select that this astromap will be a comparison of today with the birth chart, and then we will move it forward and backwards. So we're going to do exactly what the idea is. We're going to do an astromap that overlays today with the birth chart. More specifically, we're going to compare the planets today to the ascendant and midheaven of the birth chart. And we'll be able to move it over time and watch it move. Okay, so let's do it. Step number 1 is enter a chart for today. Okay, so here's the Sirius software. It'll work the same way in Kepler. I'm in Sirius version 2.0. I have 2 charts that I've already read in. Donald Trump, I know you're tired, whether you like him or don't like him. He's used so often. But Donald Trump made an announcement on June 1st, 2017, and I'll go over the details of what the announcement is, but I'm going to show you how you see that announcement. You can see how the astrology works into that announcement using these techniques. So I thought I'd give you a real example, and then I'll show you an example in my own life. Because just like anybody, I love to apply these things to my own chart, and while I was preparing this video, I said, oh, let me look at my own chart. I haven't looked at it in this way, and wow, it's so revealing. To use this method. I'm going to start using it more often. I've gotten out of the habit of using this, and it's so fantastic. Okay, step number 1, create a chart for today, is the way you would do it in Kepler and Sirius. Other programs may not, will work slightly differently. But what we're going to do is we're going to create a chart for today. Fast way to do that is click on New and select Current Chart, Current Transit Chart, Quick Select. The exact time and place that you do it for is really not important. You'll see why. We're going to be using only the planets, the transiting planets, not the transiting house cusps. They move too fast, and they're going to just move a certain amount each day. So the exact time doesn't matter. You'll see as we get into it. So I clicked on that and I created a chart for today. Now I have 3 entries. The current entry is transits for today. I happen to be making this video on June 15th, 2017. That's today. It made a chart for the current time and the place I've selected. And I've got my 2 other entries. Now what I'm going to do, step number 2, is I'm going to select an AstroMap for today. Not for my chart, not for Donald Trump's chart, for today. And then I'm going to tell the program to compare it. We're going to compare it to Donald Trump. And then we're going to go back to June 1st and see what happened. Okay, so I go here and I select an AstroMap. Go to Maps, AstroMap. And let's go into the Washington, D.C. area where, the capital of the United States. I think it's in here under District of Columbia. I'll zoom. Whoop, I meant to click on zoom out. I'm just going to pick this area of the United States to see these lines zooming in. I could pick the entire United States. It doesn't matter. And I'll just select a basic map. I'm going to select a basic map, what we call no orbs, just lines. Oh, say I put in major aspects. Oh, by the way, I just thought of one thing. When I show you this map, the glyphs are going to be small. Let me click OK. You'll see what I mean. You see these glyphs down here? You're probably having trouble seeing those. I'm going to right-click, go to Customize, Features of all AstroMaps, click OK, and over here is Adjust Label Point Size, and I'll increase it by 4 points. I'm just going to this Customize feature, clicking OK. Now these labels are bigger. You can probably read them a lot more easily. So here are the transits for today. Now, let me right-click and go back to my settings. What I really want to do is compare this to Donald Trump. And right here is the chart to compare to. I'm going to hit this little down arrow and I'm going to select Donald Trump. So that, my friends, is the trick. That's the little trick. You compare it to Donald Trump. And you do it from today's chart, not from his chart. Do it the way I just showed you. Select the chart for today and then compare it to the person you're interested in. Now it's going to be an overlay of today's planets to Donald Trump's house cusps. That's what it's going to do. What I have here, before I change it to Donald Trump, this is just the AstroMap for this moment. So I went back and I changed it to compare to Donald Trump. Now I click OK. And this, it tells me up here in this little caption, this is the transits chart of the planets compared to Donald Trump, ascendant in midheaven. It's showing me where the transiting planets make aspects to Donald Trump's ascendant in midheaven, and transiting Uranus today on June 15th is trining, making a trine aspect to Donald Trump's ascendant, because these yellow labels in these astromaps mean the ascendant, and this curved line shows where the transiting Uranus makes a trine to Donald Trump's ascendant. Now, this is for today, for June 15th. How do I watch it over time? I just go to this, to the time adjust. So that's the last little trick, you might say, the last little step to this is after I've created this astromap that compares today's planets to Donald Trump's chart, now I can just move it forward and backward with the time adjust. This time adjust feature is fantastic because it works essentially with everything, not just chart wheels, but it will work with this. And my current chart is the transits chart. So I am time adjusting the transit chart, the transiting planets. I'm not adjusting Donald Trump's chart because my current chart is the transits. Okay, so I'm going to go to time adjust. And let's go back. I've already entered here. Remember, 7 days. I'll go back a week. Now look at this transiting Uranus line. It's going east of Washington, D.C., a little east of Baltimore today. A week earlier, I'm going to select 7 days and hit this left arrow, and it tells me that means earlier. And up here it says June 15th. I'll hit the left arrow. It moved 7 days earlier to June 8th. And we see that a week earlier, the Uranus trine the ascendant was closer to Washington, D.C. It's now a little west of Baltimore. You might have a little difficulty reading this, but this says Washington. This is Washington, D.C., this dot where my arrow is, a little to the left of the line. Now let's go back another week earlier. I'll click this left arrow again. Now it tells me up here in this highlighted text that I'm now on June 1st. It happens to be 1:19 p.m. You see now why the time doesn't really matter. This is not going to move dramatically in one day. It's going to move just a little bit. Over a week, it only moved this tiny bit. But now look at this line. It's going right through Washington, D.C. If I go 1 day earlier, I'll go 1 day, and I hit the left arrow. Now it's right through it. I mean, it's within days of being exactly through Washington, D.C. So what does this mean? This means that Donald Trump made this announcement on June 1st, exactly when transiting Uranus was trine his relocated ascendant. So he's getting a Uranus trine ascendant effect in Washington, D.C., where he spends most of his time, where the capital of the United States is. He's having a Uranus trine his ascendant. What does that mean? It means he's going to do something where he wants to feel more free, less restricted. And that's the day he announces that he's pulling the United States out of the Paris Climate Change Accord, the agreement by dozens and dozens of countries around the world agreeing to implement steps to control greenhouse gases to prevent man-made pollution and climate change. Not everybody agrees with that. I'm not even going to go there. I don't want to get into politics and have a lot of you yelling and screaming. Let's just talk about the astrology, because we can disagree about the politics, but what we can agree about is that what Donald Trump did on that day was to leave a group, to go independent, to not be restricted by this controlling force. Anytime you have an agreement, you're compromising, you're doing something because you think that it's a good idea. Uranus doesn't like to do that. It goes on its own. It's a free spirit. The good side of Uranus is it leads to invention, innovation. The bad side of Uranus is it's disruptive and it's not cooperative. Now, a trine is smooth. It's harmonious. It went over relatively smoothly. People were upset, but it just seemed it was rather expected by this point that he would probably do this. It didn't send shock waves through the world, and he just did it. It was a Uranian event as transiting Uranus trine that as his relocated ascendant in Washington. Now, what I think gets really interesting is let's see what happens in Paris. What was happening to Donald Trump's transits for him relocated to Paris, which was the center. We call it the Paris Agreement or Paris Accord. That's where it was signed. That's where, so that location is relevant. It's in part of this thing. So I'm going to hit cancel. I'm going to right click on this map, and let's see what it looks like for Paris. So I'll type in Paris, France. I'll click OK. I'll just leave it at that. It's zoomed in a lot. That's fine. I don't really care too much. I want a basic map with just aspects. It's got that selected. I think I've got it right. If I don't, I can always right click and come back. It still says it's compared to Donald Trump. So I'll click OK. And now I'm seeing the relocated transits. I'm not the relocated. I'm seeing the transiting planets to Donald Trump's relocated chart. And here's transiting Uranus opposition the ascendant. Remember, the yellow lines are to the ascendant. It means it's on its descendant, going right exactly through Paris today, on the day I'm making this. But let me go to the time adjust. This is Paris, France, right here. Paris, France. I could also make these labels bigger. Maybe I should do that. Let me let me go right click, go to customize, features of all AstroMaps, size of city dots, font size of cities, 8. Let's make it big, 12. It'll be maybe too big. Click OK. Well, you see these cool features in a few seconds. Now you can maybe read it more easily. 8 point is very readable on my screen, but transferring to video, it's nice to make things bigger. So there it is. You can probably read it now if you couldn't read it before. Paris, and it's going right through it, but the announcement, whoops, I clicked. I didn't mean to click. Hold up in interpretation. But this was 2 weeks ago, so I'm going to go to the time adjust. 2 weeks ago that he made the announcement, and I'll go back 14 days. Put in 14, hit the left arrow. Up here it tells me, yes, June 1st. Here's the transiting Uranus, opposition is ascendant. A little bit away from Paris. It actually is exact now, so people are still talking about and reacting to his announcement. It's probably going to, more of the impact of his statement is going to be sinking in during this time period as Uranus crosses Paris. But there it is, very, very close, exact 2 weeks after his announcement. You have transiting Uranus aspecting his relocated ascendant in Washington, D.C. and in Paris. And when this kind of thing happens, people want to be free. And of course, Donald Trump is that way in general anyway, and he makes that announcement. So that event occurs right then. So it's an example of using this when and where something will happen. I'll show you another example in a moment. But let's go back to our PowerPoint slide. And just to review quickly, we enter a chart for today. We select Adjust Lines AstroMap is good to do. They come up quickly. We also have these fancy treasure maps, which take a few seconds to come up. For this kind of thing, I often use the Just Lines because I'm using the time adjust and it moves through very, very quickly. So for example, let me show you that. Let me show you how nice and smoothly this works. If I go to the time adjust and I want to see what's happening for Donald Trump each month, I can put 1 month here and I could say, okay, this is what's happening on June 15th. Let's jump over to the middle of July 15th. Now I see this Uranus opposition has headed over into Brussels. I'll go another month, by August 15, Uranus opposition and also Neptune sesquiquadrat is right here. Looks like it's still in that Brussels-Amsterdam area. So maybe something will come up in the next month related to the Netherlands. Maybe Donald Trump is going to make the people in the Netherlands upset by going his own way. As Uranus moves over there's a fairly good chance of it. So you can see how different areas get triggered. I just clicked again, and we can just keep clicking and see how this moves. And as the transiting planets move direct and retrograde, they may move to the right, they may move to the left. In other words, east and west. Now Uranus is moving back west again, and it's over here. So it's fun to watch, and it's also very, very useful. You can pick out the time and place. I have used this a lot in the past to consult people, and it's been fantastic. It's really been amazing how you can pick the right time and place. Okay. All right. Now, I want to go over, before I show you this last example from my own chart of using this technique to predict the best time and place. I'm calling this video, we go to the top here, how to be in the right place at the right time. And that's what this does, how to be in the right place at the right time. But before I show you another example from my own chart, let me go over the meanings of the planets in this, because you don't want to exaggerate it. When we talk about Uranus, let me jump down to Uranus, which is what the transiting planet involved with Donald Trump in this example that I'm giving. What Uranus is going to do is lead to some more spontaneity, the tendency to improvise, to go your own way, to leave a group. Don't expect when Uranus crosses that there's going to be some major total upheaval in the person's life. That's not usually what happens, because it's to the relocated chart. It's not to the natal chart. It creates that kind of energy in relationship to that place. So with Uranus, there's some independence, leaving groups, going your own way, feeling free. And that's what he did. Let's start from the top and go through each one. If it's transiting Sun, it's going to put a spotlight on the area. You get attention. So if you see transiting Sun is, say, conjunct your ascendant in a particular city at a particular on a particular day, you come out. You are highlighted. It's a good time for you to be in front of a group or to make a presentation. You are highlighted. The moon will bring about an emphasis on history, soul, genealogy, and memories. Also what you could call past lives, things that feel so familiar. Mercury, straightforward. Talking, speaking, communicating. So if transiting Mercury is conjunct your ascendant, for example, on a certain date and a certain place, it's good for you to be communicating, speaking, giving presentations in that place at that time. Suppose you're scheduled to give a speech somewhere. You can look at it, and maybe you have a few invitations to speak, or, for example. You can pick the ones where you see that highlighted. The communication will be very strong, very clear, very exciting. It's the right day for it. With Venus, something beautiful attracts you. With Mars, don't think you're going to get into fights and arguments and people bring up all these negative images. You're going to want to get something done. You're going to want to do it. It's action. You will fight through obstacles, and there could be some friction. But with Mars, it means action. If you see Mars is transiting and you just want to go on vacation and just relax and not do anything, well, it's not going to happen. You're going to be active. You're going to be wanting to do things. Jupiter, growth, expansion, exploring, enjoyable growth. Saturn, if you see Saturn, don't say restriction, everything's going to stop. What will happen is not that so much, is that you're going to focus on essentials. You're going to get to the things of lasting value. You don't want superficialities. It's not the time to go to some hobnobbing with wealthy people and it's just all about money and appearances. You want to get to the fundamentals, to essentials, to things that really count and that are important. That's why Saturn is serious. It doesn't want the frivolous. It's going to get down to the really important things. I already talked about Uranus. Neptune will bring about imagination and inspiration. It's a great places for vacation. If you see Neptune crossing an angular cusp or making an aspect to it, on the time you want a vacation, you might think, oh, Neptune's terrible, everything's going to go wrong. Actually, it can be perfect, because a lot of times when we go on a vacation, or what they call in Europe, go on holiday, you want to get inspired. You want to see the beautiful sunrise, the beautiful sunset, creative art, concerts, whatever it is. You see the beach, you climb the mountain, you go to a show. So many things that inspire, that get you out of your normal daily routine and start seeing the magic in what's right in front of you. It's just great for that kind of thing. And Pluto, you'll have the sense of a deep karmic destiny, like something from deep inside you is being brought out, something important that just you didn't know about, that was hidden, comes to the surface with a tremendous force when there's Pluto. And that's what's happening to me. And I'm going to show you a little thing in my chart with Pluto, just as to give you another example of this. So I already talked about this, the June 1st. Donald Trump announced that the USA will no longer participate in the global agreement to slow down man-made climate change. And here's an article by a very conservative person for Fox News, and he describes what President Trump did in these kind of Uranian ways. He says, it is not brave these days to stand up and denounce President Trump. Hollywood and the media will turn you into a hero. Well, this is a conservative person who loves Trump and doesn't like people criticizing him. And he says, you know, they think they're heroes criticizing him, but they aren't. But he says, excuse me, I'm not a big pro-Trump person, so don't, start posting a bunch of things about how I'm pro-Trump. I'm not. And let's not even get into that. Let's just focus on the astrology. So, but it is a brave thing to stand up to the zeitgeist and culture of fear and bullying the left and media have instilled on the issue of climate change. But President Trump is doing just that. He's defying the left, the media, his children, and many world leaders. Defying. That's a very Iranian thing. Not following what people expect, doing what you want. In short, he is leading. He's going his own way. He is withdrawing the United States from the Paris Climate Accord. So it's a Uranian event with those Uranus transits to both his relocated chart in Washington, D.C. and Paris. That's what's so amazing. He has a Uranus transit, one's an opposition, one's a trine, in both places. So a Uranian event occurs right from Donald Trump. So, all right, now, so we've already done that. And let me show you an example from my own chart. In 2 weeks, I'm going to Italy, my first time to go to Italy. I'm going to be speaking at a conference. And as the time has been leading up to this conference, I've gone online to learn a few phrases in Italian. I was brought up with an Italian family. And, but much more important to me is that so many great astrologers, Placidus was born in Perugia, the village or city, whatever you want to call it, where the conference is, north of Rome. And as I've been looking at it, I've been feeling this very deep, strong connection, reading about all the astrologers there. So naturally, I was making this video. I said, well, let me look at mine for July 1st. The conference is on June 30th through the 2nd, the main conference, July 1st and 2nd. So I'll take the transits and I'll do an AstroMap. So let's do a map, AstroMap. I'm doing it to the transiting chart, June 15th. But instead of Donald Trump, I just go down here and I select me. We're both listed here because I read in both of our charts before I started the video. So I select me. And I want to do it, I want to make sure Perugia is in the map. It's not a huge city. So to make sure that it shows up in the map so I can see it, I select it here. I could just type Italy, but to make sure that it shows up in the map, if it was Rome, it's going to be there because it's such a big, important city. Perugia is pretty large. It might show up anyway, but to make sure I've selected here and I have this checked, and I'll do the major aspects. I think I've got everything right here. I'll click OK. And I can read up here to confirm transiting planets to David Cochrane Ascendant Midheaven. Yes, that's what I want. And today is June 15th, about 2 weeks before the conference. And here's transiting Pluto Also moon sesquiquadrat. They're on the same exact line. Moon sesquiquadrat and Pluto going exactly through Perugia today. Sorry if I'm yelling. This is amazing. Because I'm not one of these people who's, oh, everything's past lives. Like, ooh, now I'm going into my past life. I mean, I believe in past lives, fine. But, you know, I'm sort of I think in many different ways. I don't frame everything in the same way all the time. But I have to say that this has been feeling like I'm going back into my past lives. And every time I look, I find out about another astrologer who taught it in a university 600 years ago, and I start dreaming about it. Something is going on, and it's amazing that while 2 weeks before this, while all this is building up in my head, and I'm noticing all these things, there's Pluto opposition my ascendant and the moon, sesquiquadrat, the relocated ascendant right through Perugia, also a Uranus semi-sextile to the midheaven. Right, exactly through Perugia as I'm making this video. So very interesting. Now, if I go forward 2 weeks to the date of the conference, let me go to the time adjust. So you're probably getting the feeling of this now. And I can also put the date here. I can go forward a number of days. I can also put a date, July 1st, 2017. I can also change the time. So I'll click on Apply Date. And 2 weeks from now, Pluto's moved a little bit off Perugia. This also depends on the birth time being super precise. The birth time's off a minute or two. This could actually be, the timing could be a little different, but it really makes sense to me. It's still very close. It's there. And during the month before it started, right about 2 weeks ago, I said, ooh, the conference is coming up in a month. I better get ready for it. At least learn how to say hello and thank you and a few other basic things in Italian. And get a feeling. And I started Googling Perugia and saying, oh my gosh, look at these astrologers back then. And just something rings deep inside. So there it is. I just wanted to share that with you. And the moon, you know, moving faster has now moved further. Actually, it was a moon sesquiquadrat, moved totally off. That moon may not have been that important because it moved so fast. The main thing is that Pluto is opposition, my relocated ascendant in Perugia at this time. So that's the kind of thing you can do. It's so fantastic because you can just move forward and backward, watch the lines move, see what's getting triggered, when it's getting triggered, and it's fascinating and it's useful. I find it's amazing. And I've used it to adjust the timing for going places, doing things. It gives me a much better idea of what's to expect. And it answers this question, how to be in the right place at the right time. So let me cancel out of this, go back to my opening screen with that title, How to Be in the Right Place at the Right Time. This is a fantastic technique for doing it. It sometimes goes under names like psychocartography. There's different names. And there's also issues about whether you're doing it in zodiac longitude or in mundo. I do everything in zodiac longitude. That's another controversial thing. And I've made about a dozen other videos on relocational astrology. This is just a video on this specific technique, and you can watch those other videos to start from the ground up and to understand all this. Okay, my friends, thank you very much for listening. God bless. Namaste.